Become a sponsor today by visiting patreon.com/psychologyis.
Welcome and thank you so much for tuning into the Psychology Is podcast. This is our 59th episode. I'm your host, Nick Fortino, and today I have with me Dr. Patricio Hahn, who is a science writer and author of many books and expert in biology. And I'll let you elaborate on your background, but I'll just say for the audience that you have a great website, patrickhahn.net. We'll make sure we provide links. And books you've written most recently include The Day Science Died and Prescription for Sorrow, Antidepressant, Suicide, and Violence, Madness and Genetic Determinism, and then, of course, Obedience Pills, ADHD and the Medicalization of Childhood. This is the one of yours that I've read, and I think very highly of it. And many of our subscribers, our audience members, have been following this podcast for a while. And so you're aware that I've spoken to many experts who have valid criticisms of psychiatry and modern day paradigms around various behaviors and emotional patterns and thought patterns. So, the audience knows that I've been reading many books on this topic, but yours really is outstanding. I think you did a great job. So congratulations with that. And can you just introduce yourself a little bit more, tell us about your educational background, your professional activities, and what led you to want to, what drew your interest in this topic?
Well, my background is not in medicine or psychiatry or psychology. I am a university teacher by profession. I have spent my entire career working to make scientific knowledge available to all. And I view my work as an author as an extension of that. I've never claimed my degree gives me any authority in these matters, but it has given me a perspective, which I believe is undervalued. My background is in evolutionary biology. And two things have long been obvious to me. One is that our bodies evolved to function, and to function very well. They did not evolve to malfunction. And the second is that our bodies evolved to function for a time, and then to die and get the hell out of the way of the next generation. And I have long been skeptical of much of what the medical profession does. And in midlife, I became aware of some capacities that were going unused. And at the preposterously advanced age of 51, I enrolled in the science writing program at the Johns Hopkins University. At the even more preposterously advanced age of 54, I walked across the stage and collected my second master's degree. And I published 4 books in 4 years. And I knew I wanted to write about over-medicalization, not specifically psychiatry. But if you wish to write about over-medicalization, psychiatry provides an endless vein of material. I've come to the conclusion that psychiatry is a pseudoscience. The world would be better off without it.
100%. It is the lowest hanging fruit if you're looking for something to criticize about modern day medicine.
The problems they treat manifestly are not medical problems.
Right.
They're not amenable to medical solutions. And so I continued with this theme in my book, Obedience Pills. The doctors who purport to treat this condition have never been able to agree on very much about this condition, starting with what to call it. minimal brain dysfunction, hyperkinetic reaction of childhood, minimal brain damage, and attention deficit disorder, and a whole slew of other names, and most recently, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. That category has been around only since 1980, since the DSM-3 kicked off the era of biological psychiatry. But there are clinical accounts of children who today are said to have suffered from this disorder, going back well over a century. And the first such account was published by George Still all the way back in 1903. Still was the founding father of pediatric medicine, by the way. And his account described 20 children, 15 boys and 5 girls, whom he said were suffering from a lack of moral control. And in reading Dr. Still's account, one thing is for certain. This was a bunch of seriously messed up kids who lied, stole, spat on people, destroyed property, viciously touched other children sexually, viciously attacked other children and even adults, tortured animals, set fires, so on and so forth. Another thing that is obvious is that these seriously disturbed children came from seriously disturbed families, rife with tales of illness, alcoholism, abuse, abandonment. In one of these families, the child's father had murdered his mother. And Dr. Still gave no consideration to the possibility that these children's problems might stem from their disordered upbringing. Rather, he took the family problems as proof that these children came from inferior genetic stock. And
Genetics.
yeah, the use of stimulant drugs to treat this ill-defined syndrome goes all the way back to the 1930s. A fellow named Charles Bradley. He worked at the Bradley Home for Children in Rhode Island. For the record, the Bradley Home was founded by a cousin of Charles Bradley, who named it after his own daughter, who died of encephalitis at the age of 27. But anyway, Dr. Bradley was interested in a technique called pneumoencephalography. And that's when they withdraw a quantity of cerebrospinal fluid from the spinal canal and replace it with air. So to make a better contrast for showing up on x-rays. And so the child would be strapped down in this rotating chair. And after enduring a painful lumbar puncture, the chair would be rotated in various directions in a specified sequence, so the air bubble could displace the cerebrospinal fluid in the brain. And big surprise, this procedure caused dizziness, vertigo, nausea, severe headaches. It could take weeks for the normal amount of cerebrospinal fluid to regenerate. And Dr. Bradley became concerned about the misery that this procedure was inflicting upon his young charges. Not concerned enough to stop doing it, but concerned nonetheless. And the drug amphetamine had come onto the market just 5 years before. And so he tested this drug on the children. And he found that it did nothing for their headaches. But what it did do, and this is, of course, a well-known effect of amphetamine, it blunts their affect, increases children's ability to concentrate on, and adults, anyone's ability to concentrate on boring tasks. In short, it creates the kind of changes in children which an exhausted parent or a harried school teacher would likely regard as improvements. And what about Dr. Bradley's studies of the brains of these children that caused so much misery to his young charges? They yielded no findings that were of any use to science whatsoever.
Thank you for that. And many people listening probably are aware of the historical context. The 1930s was when frontal lobotomies were happening and asylums were decrepit, disgusting places that would turn anybody psychotic if they had to stay there. And there was still, beliefs in trephination and near drowning therapy and extended bath therapy and organ removal and just all of the most horrific, torturous, inhumane, so-called treatments you could imagine. And this to me really, really highlights something important, which is that despite the fact that there are many people today who I respect, who are very intelligent, who work as psychiatrists, the field of psychiatry has been defined by crises of legitimacy throughout time. It has always been an outcast in the field of medicine. The field has always been desperately attempting to make itself sound and seem and be as scientific as other medical fields, but it never has been, and it never will be, in my opinion. Understanding human behavior and what shapes human perception, human emotion, thoughts, is the realm of psychology. And what is going on a biological level, on a neurological level, is the realm of neurology. And psychiatry sits in this strange middle ground between the two, but it's not the best of both worlds by any means. It's a scientifically empty, medical field that is doing harm. And sometimes when I hear myself say things like this, I'm a very reasonable, rational person. And I always think, am I exaggerating? Am I being hyperbolic? But honestly, when I then go back and sometimes rewatch these podcasts or just reflect on the things that I'm saying, I actually end up with the conclusion, I don't think I'm speaking passionately enough. I think that what is happening in the realm of psychiatry right now, what is happening with the drugging of children is a crime against humanity that we will look back upon shamefully. And I have a sense that it's getting better, but that might be only because of the world that I'm in and my social network and the experts that I'm talking to. I don't know whether the data bear out this notion that things are getting better. So just to kind of justify, everything I've just said, let's talk about the diagnosis of ADHD and the problems, the nature of that diagnosis, the problems with it, and the implications of diagnosing somebody with ADHD. So what would you like to share about the nature of the diagnosis of ADHD?
Well, we spent billions of dollars on genetics studies. There's no gene for ADHD. There is and billions of dollars on neuroimaging studies. There is no abnormality of brain structure, which is diagnostic of ADHD. There is no abnormality of brain function, that is diagnostic of ADHD. This condition, and as I've said, it's been referred to by a long number of names over the year, large number of names over the years, is defined just by symptom checklists. These long lists of checklists, some of which are mutually exclusive. Talks too much, too shy, too bossy, too gullible. The child can, in fact, a hyperactive child doesn't even have to be hyperactive. uh,